Nobody said this was going to be easy. Hey, everybody, this is Pastor Justin Walker with The Whole Truth. We're going through the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation. I want you to come along with me. So you need to grab a Bible, turn it open to Genesis 35, and find verse 16. Genesis 35, verse 16. Now, we've been studying about this guy named Jacob. That is Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, right? The son of Isaac, the son of Abraham, he is a patriarch of the faith. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are patriarchs of the faith in the Old Testament. That's what we call them, is the patriarchs. And so Abraham had faith in the Lord and went to the land that God showed him. Now, he had struggles in his life, and Isaac had been promised by the Lord that he would have this. There were three promises. Remember, there'd be land, there'd be people in the land, nation, and that all nations of the world would be blessed through their line. Well, Jacob has been given the same promise, but Jacob, of all the patriarchs, Jacob has been living a pretty worldly life. He has 4 wives. Instead of 1, he has 4 wives. Now, some of that he was tricked into, but some of it he took willingly. And he'd been living with Laban. He had to run to Laban because he stole the birthright and the blessing from his brother. And so Jacob's been living a fleshly or a worldly life. And he has now been drawn back to the Lord. The Lord is calling him back. And maybe that right there alone relates to you, living a worldly life and then being drawn back to the Lord. Well, Jacob has finally made his way to where God had called him. It took a few hard lessons, but Jacob is finally there. And his name has been changed to Israel. God changed his name and said, "You'll no longer be called Jacob, but you shall be called Israel." Well, Jacob kind of went back to living like Jacob again. And God had to keep calling him to get him to go all the way to Bethel, which is where God needed him to be to begin with. So here we are in the story. Jacob finally makes it to Bethel. Let's look. Then they journeyed from Bethel, and when there was but a little distance to go to Ephrath, Rachel labored in childbirth, and she had hard labor. Now it came to pass when she was in hard labor that the midwife said, "Do not fear, you will have a son also." And so it was, as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Ben-Oni. But his father called him Benjamin. And so Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. And Jacob set a pillar on her grave, which is the pillar of Rachel's grave to this day. Then Israel pitched his tent beyond the tower of Eder. And it happened when Israel dwelt in the land that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard about it. My goodness. Jacob is Israel. That's the same person. Jacob's name has been changed to Israel. So don't get confused as I say Israel and start thinking about the nation. Right now we're talking about this guy, one guy named Jacob. And he has all of these sons. Now he has 12 sons. His favorite wife, the wife that he tried to marry to begin with, her name is Rachel. They're on their way. They made it to Bethel, and God is calling them to the land of promise. And obviously they're on their way to Bethlehem, and on their way, Rachel has the child, and she's pregnant, and she has a child. They're both older in age, and this time she has a hard labor, and Rachel dies. In her passing, on her deathbed, which is also the delivery bed, she names the son Ben-Oni. That literally means son of sorrow. And I want you to see that Jacob changes that name to Benjamin. Now, let's talk about Rachel for just a minute. Remember, Rachel ended up in that birthing war, if you will, with her sister. Leah was also married to Jacob. Now, that happened in a trick. Their father, Laban, had tricked Jacob into marrying Leah first instead of Rachel. But Jacob didn't refuse it and he didn't reject it. He went ahead and kept Leah as a wife. Then he takes Rachel as a wife. Well, Rachel's not having children, and she's the favorite wife, and Jacob is favoring her, but she's not having any children. And remember, she said, "Give me children or I die. Give me children lest I die." Well, here she is. She is having a child. We don't hear of anybody else having a child. And Rachel had been part of, to try to get children from Jacob, she gave her handmaid to Jacob, and as a concubine or a surrogate mother. Well, Jacob obliged, and then Leah did the same, and she gave her handmaid as a wife to Jacob, as a concubine. And so you ended up with Jacob's got Bilhah and Zilpah and Rachel and Leah all as his wives, and they're all having kids, and they're kind of having this war. Who could have more kids from Jacob? Well, here we end the story of that war. Here is Rachel, but look, all she wanted before, she said, give me a child lest I die. Here she is giving birth, and it's the thing that's killing her. I want you to remember today that life is brief, and you have no promise of tomorrow. And don't get so wrapped up in worldly things or in your own lust or your own desires that you forget that one day you are going to be in the same position where Rachel is. And notice what she named the child. She calls him Son of Sorrow. Here she is about to pass. Of course she's going to name him Son of Sorrow. She's about to pass. Do you think in this moment, do you think that she cared whether she had more children than Leah or not? Do you think that mattered at this point? Probably not. I don't mean to be crude or cruel. What I'm saying is that life is short. Let's make sure we focus on the right things. Notice what Jacob did, or Israel. His name is Israel. And notice what he's done. He changes the name. Here she is. His wife just passed. And he changes the name to Benjamin. That means son of my right hand. That would be to say somebody to be at your right hand. That would be a position of honor. He's not son of sorrow, Ben-Oni. He's Benjamin, son at my right hand. And so Jacob changes his name. How can Jacob do that? I mean, in this moment, we're talking about Jacob here. Jacob has been living a worldly life and a fleshly life. And now he changes the name to son at my right hand instead of son of sorrow. You would almost feel like Jacob would want to keep that name, son of sorrow, Ben-Oni, that he'd want to keep that because his wife has just passed. But Jacob doesn't want to keep that. How did Jacob get to this point? How do we get Jacob to this point? Because Jacob is finally trying to live for the Lord. He's on his way to the land of promise. They're trying to make their way to Bethel and then into Bethlehem where God is calling them to be. And Jacob is living for the Lord. And so though he's going through something that's kind of hard right now, well, not kind of hard, that is hard. His wife is the wife that he loved, the one he wanted to marry to begin with, just passed. And he changes the name of the son to son of my right hand instead of son of sorrow. Because he's living for the Lord. Now, I want you to know this. When we come to Christ, it is not always easy. Some people want to come to Christ because they think that life's going to be easier. Friends, no one is promising you that life is going to be easier. What we're promising you is that Christ will give you the strength to deal with those daily things that are coming. Those daily things, listen, Rachel was going to die whether or not Jacob or Israel was living right for the Lord or not. So the question is not whether or not he was going to go through something hard. The question is he going to go through something hard by himself, or is he going to go through something hard walking with the Lord right by his side, with the Lord as his shepherd? How does the psalm go? For the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, right? Because the Lord is with me, because I'm with the Lord. When you are walking with the Lord, it makes the daily things that you are going to go through, it doesn't make them go away, but it gives us strength to be walking with the Lord. Now, as I said, this isn't going to be easy. Look what else happened. Israel, as he journeyed, in verse 21, as he journeyed, he pitched his tent towards the Tower of Eder, and it happened that Israel dwelt in the land, and Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. What a disgrace. His wife just passed. And Reuben, his oldest son, goes and lays with his concubine. By the way, Reuben, his oldest son from Leah. So this isn't his mom, but this is one of his dad's other wives that his dad has married. He goes and he lays with her. Reuben went and laid with Bilhah. What a disgrace to Israel. But I want you to hear this as well. It really is no shock that Reuben would go and do this because, remember, Jacob had been living a worldly life. I'm going to say something else, and some of you may not like this, but you have to accept it. You can't live for the world your whole life, and then when you finally decide to get right with the Lord, expect that everybody around you, your family and your kids and everybody that you've been living for the world with, is going to turn with you and going to live correctly with you. Now, if you notice, his oldest three sons, Jacob or Israel, his oldest three sons have now sinned pretty great sins. Let's look at this list of names and I'll point something out to you. Look here. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. Sons of Leah were Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, Simeon, Levi. Those were the guys that went in and slayed all the people that had dishonored their sister. Remember when there was that rape scene that we saw? They went in and killed the whole village. That was Simeon and Levi. Now, Judah, Issachar, Zebulon. These are the sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's maidservant, were Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Zilpah, Leah's maidservant, were Gad and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob who were born to him in Padan Aram. Then Jacob came to his father Isaac at Mamre, or Kirjath Arba, that is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had dwelt. And now the days of Isaac were 180 years. And so Isaac breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people, being old and full of days, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. Okay, let's close out chapter 35. But did you notice what I just pointed out to you? Those first three sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, all of them have sinned great sins. We get to the fourth son, and that is who? Judah. That's the son who the promised Messiah would come through. Judah. Jesus is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Well, I'm not saying that Judah was anything more holy than these other guys or that he did anything more special, but it goes to show again that God always has a purpose in what he's doing. We didn't understand earlier when Judah is getting blessed and when Judah is being told that he'll be the one that the promised Messiah would come through. It doesn't always make sense until we put the whole story together, like what we're doing, reading this in context. And we see that Reuben and Simeon and Levi had all sinned these great sins. And so we're down to the fourth son now, Judah, and Jesus would come through Judah. Well, so Reuben had laid with his dad's concubine, but his dad didn't say anything. Israel didn't say anything. Here's the sons. These are the 12 tribes of Israel. And then we close out the story with what? We see that Israel gets to go see his father Isaac one more time. But this time he's 180 years old. And now the days of Isaac were 180 years. And so Isaac breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people, old and full of days. And his son Esau and Jacob buried him. He's lost his wife. His son went and laid with his concubine, and he knew about it. And then he goes to visit his dad, and his dad passes away at 180 years old. His dad lived a good life to an old age, but it's still hard to lose somebody. Listen, it's not going to be easy just because you followed Jesus, but we take up our cross every day and we follow him. I liked what one commentator said. I liked how he put it. He said that God didn't call us to the easy chair, but to carry our cross. And I think that's a great way to put it. We're supposed to carry our cross. There's things that we're going to go through. It doesn't mean, it's not proof that you've sinned or that you're not saved. Or this life is hard. Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. But be of good cheer. I've overcome the world. Friends, the question is not whether there's going to be trouble or not. It's will you have Christ walking with you, or will you be walking with Christ when you go through them? Will he be your strength? Will he be your shield? As the psalmist says it, will he be your buckler? Will he be the one standing beside you and strengthening you? Or will you try to go at it alone? The question is not whether or not you'll go through it, but who'll go through it with you. All right, everybody, I hope that you had an enjoyable experience today as we finished up chapter 35, and tomorrow we'll be in chapter 36, and I hope you'll come along with me. I'll see you then.